Okay, so in the last video I talked about the cap-and-trade system and why it is a cost-effective tool and why economists advocate for it as a very cost-effective way to achieve a certain amount of emission reductions. And now I'm gonna talk about one of the main other arguments which economists bring forward to support cap-and-trade systems, which is the incentive argument, that there are incentives for the actors within the system to reduce their emissions further and invest into research and development in developing new tools to reduce the emissions. This graph doesn't look that nice at the moment, but I'm gonna clean it up a little bit. And we are gonna have exactly the same graph which we have been working with in the last set of presentation. So we still got on the right y-axis the marginal abatement costs of firm B, and we have on this axis the marginal abatement costs of firm A, and down here we have a total amount of emissions which has been capped by the government. Permits by issuing permits, and then that is limited number of permits. And so we have still two polluters in the system. So the firm A, which emits here at if there weren't any regulations or any market here, and faces a cost of emission represented by this schedule, marginal abatement costs for each additional unit of emission reduction. And then we are still gonna have the emission schedule for firm B, which is here the original emissions E0B and the emission schedule. And the two firms are gonna get allocated a certain amount of emissions in the beginning, which is roughly equal in this case. So let's say here, and actually the debate on whether you should allocate the emissions or whether you should auction them from the beginning is a very important debate when we talk about the fine details on emission trading, but conceptually they both lead in the end to the efficient outcome, which is gonna be here. So here the E star 1, E star 1 at a price level per permit of P star 1, and that is the efficient outcome. And we have seen that that is also the most cost-effective way, because basically the society as a whole, or the industry is gonna save this here, this triangle. And with this system though, both firms have an incentive to reduce their emissions further, especially if the government already told that the total number of permits is going to be reduced within the next time step by 50%, for example, or let's say reduced from 100 permits which are available in the market at the moment to only a 50 in a future moment. So what happens exactly if the firm B actually lowers its marginal abatement cost by having invested before into some sort of new scrubber technology which gives it now a lower marginal abatement cost schedule? That was the marginal abatement cost 1 originally. And now we are on this lower graph here. And as we can see, before we were facing actually firm B had in this particular case a higher abatement cost than firm A, and had to buy a certain number of units here. The difference between those two lines, between the allocated amount of emissions here and the efficient outcome here, those amount of units the firm B had to buy from firm A. But now, with the lowered emission cost, firm B actually has the lower emission cost or abatement costs, sorry, not emission cost but abatement costs than firm A, and will actually have an excess amount of permits and will try to sell those permits to firm A. Given that firm A probably was interested in keeping the same amount of the equilibrium of being able to sell emission permits on the market, and therefore might also invest in a new technology which lowers its own marginal abatement cost and will drive down the price here to this new equilibrium, and that's E2 star, and the price of an emission unit is now going to be here P2 star. But yeah, so the society as a whole will profit from the decrease in prices of abatement costs, and also in a lower emission costs in total.